This show is brought to you in part by viewers like you who joined a Patreon or become YouTube members. Thank you. And if you could, hit the like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content. One of the best things about going to these off-season kind of like, I guess they feel kind of like conventions almost, right? But one of the best things about these off-season all-star events is you get to see people, you get to link up with people in person for that you may not have the opportunity to on a regular basis. And that's been one of the best things about this experience here at East West Shrine Game. I've been able to link up with my guy, CORY KINNAN of Daft on Draft. We've been watching some East West Shrine practices, looking at some young prospects. CORY, how's your weekend been, man?
It's been great, man. It feels weird to be on a show with you right now when we're in the same hotel, in the same city, in different rooms. And it's great to be here, man. It was great to meet you today. So yeah, I'm excited to talk some ball.
Yeah, man, definitely a fun thing to talk ball here. The first thing I kind of want to get to is the process here if you're the Browns at the East West Shrine Game, because you're kind of scouting for a offense that you don't know is there. So like, what, from your experience, like talking to scouts in that situation, like how do you look at things? How do you like get a list down of guys you might want to bring back to the building in a couple of weeks, or, you know, note out at a regional combine or something from these all-star games?
Yeah, so I think that the perspective has to be like, well, we're just going to build a board of talented players. And I think that's kind of how it has to be in a situation like this where there is no head coach. And that's kind of what scouts do. Yes, scouts do sometimes have the assignment of like, this is your scheme. This is the scheme this player has to fit. But scouts are good at identifying talent. And so like, no matter what the scheme is, like go build a board out of talented players and we'll figure the rest out later. When we hire a head coach, if they identify LSU wide receivers, Xavion Thomas, for instance, now they hire a new coach, that new coach's scheme, offensive coordinator, position coaches come in, they start to watch tape and say, no, that guy's not a fit. You take him off later. No big deal, no harm, no foul. So at this point, I think it's still just the information gathering stage. Build your board out, talented player for talented player, and we'll figure the rest out later.
Do you think that their process isn't going to be largely affected by not having a head coach in place for the next couple of weeks, or at least this week?
No, I don't think so. Again, I think, you know, just build out the board, identify who you think is good. Especially you can get a jump start still on the character side of things, the mental acumen side of things. Like I know scouts. I'm really good friends with one in particular, and what they're trying to do in these interviews at Shrine, at Senior Bowl, is like when they've got like 15 minutes to meet these players, 15 minutes apiece. They're trying to crack them. Like they're trying to figure out the mental side of things. They're trying to figure out like, are these guys confident? Are these guys mentally strong? Can they, if they've messed up, can they come back the next play? Like that's the stuff they're trying to figure out in meetings, and you can get a head start on that stuff still. So I think there's still a lot of merit and still a lot of value for a team like the Browns, who still don't have a head coach, to send scouts here to still figure it out. And then again, build that board out. These are the guys that we pulled from East West Shrine. Here's the guys we pulled from Senior. Here's the guy who we have high grades on in the building for that new head coach to evaluate, that new coaching staff to evaluate. They come in, then they say, nah, take that guy off, take that guy off, take that guy off. And again, Andrew Berry's still in the building. Andrew Berry's the one making this, like leading the search. Andrew Berry's the one presumably making this decision. He kind of has an idea schematically. You know, both these guys, the presumed finalists, right, Udinsky or Shieldhouse, seems like the case, right? They're both McVay disciples as well. So like you can get a pretty good understanding of like, well, I mean, Udinsky by parallel, right? Both Liam Cohen, both Kevin O'Connell, both McVay disciples. So like
Ain't
those
it
are the two
crazy that
coaches he has
McVay's
experience
like
underneath as well. You can kind of assume he's a McVay disciple as well.
McVay's like 36 with like, he's got branches that turn into different trees. like it's kind of crazy how deep that tree has already ran through the NFL. Speaking of talent, right? Like when you've watched this East West Shrine Bowl, who are some of the most talented players you go out here? When you go, you look out there, you're like, oh, okay, this guy talent-wise on a different level. Is there anybody like that out there on it at East West?
Yeah, I mean, it depends what side of the ball you want to talk about, but I think starting on offensive side of the ball, Georgia receiver Colby Thomas, or I'm sorry, Colby Young is just a specimen. Listed at 6'3", 215. Obviously, the receiving production wasn't there this year at Georgia. They're starting Gunner Stockton, not an extremely gunslinger mentality kind of quarterback, but he looks the part, really talented. I will say probably a minus for Browns fans here is that I think the offensive line play has been pretty poor. Both teams here, it's hard to find some good offensive line play. So there are some guys like Duke, played right tackle at Duke, getting some center reps here, center at center. So like Duke center Brian Parker, I think is a decent guy that they can get a good look here. There are some options to get good looks at, and with the NIL stuff and at these All-Star events, you're gonna get the older guys. You're gonna get the older guys, but as the NIL stuff kicks in, I think those Browns age guardrails are kind of getting thrown out the window anyway, because these guys who are 21, if they're getting paid enough to go back to school, they're going back to school. So I think you can still get a good look on some guys, but Colby Young, Georgia receiver, Brian Parker, center out of Duke, probably the two headliners to keep an eye on. I do like LSU wide receiver Xavier Thomas, more of a gadgety kind of like round out a room and a roll type of player, but he's really explosive. And then let's just throw out the Iowa wide receiver Caden Wheatgen as well, who's listed measured in at 5'8" and 195 pounds, 5'9", 195 pounds, but has an extensive special teams resume, averaged 28 yards a punt return this year with 3 punt return touchdowns. And he was doing some really good stuff at wide receiver as well. So he's undersized. Yes. His role on offense would be really niche. The return stuff is awesome. And then if you can find that niche role for him on offense, he can make some plays for you.
He's definitely a guy like with that kind of role that would be carved out for him. I bet the personality stuff would be very important for him because like you want that guy to have a very specific kind of like vibe to the locker room, right? Like you can almost like kind of picture it, right? Like, to kind of like not even like try hard. It's just like you just want that's the dude you're like, oh, who the fuck's running that fast on that punt at the gunner? And it's like, yeah, that's that guy, right? Like, that's kind of what you need from him. So look, if you know anything about me, you know that I am a self-proclaimed and unashamed sports nerd. And that means a lot of things. That means I love the data around sports. I love watching sports. I love breaking down sports. I love learning more about sports. Fun fact, I got gifted a sports almanac when I was a kid for Christmas. And I used to read that sports almanac for fun. Now, to be fair to me, this is before everybody had like high-speed internet at their house and had better things to do. But I did used to read that. I would love sports cards, baseball cards, basketball cards, football cards. I would love to get them and just find out obscure information about obscure players or even just fun information about big time players that you might have not known if you didn't look hard enough at the data. And that's why I want to talk about my sponsor for today's video, Fanatics Live. Fanatics Live is the most fun way to start collecting sports cards. It's a 24-hour live streaming app where fans buy and rip packs together with on-screen hosts guiding the action. There are 2 main ways to play: instant rips, where you buy a digital pack on screen. The host rips it live, revealing a physical graded card. You can instantly sell it back to the app for credit, about 90% of market value, or ship it to your house. There's also breaks. Instead of buying a whole box, you could buy a spot, usually assigned to a specific team. And when the host opens the box, you win every card pulled for your team. Here's me opening up my first pack on Fanatics. Okay. Host's about to open up my pack. Let's see what I got here. All right. Let's see what I'm getting. Oh, Steph Curry. All right. That's cool. You get like the 3D thing and you get to go into the app. And if you go into the app, you can actually see like the kind of close up of it. That's really cool. You can even read the back. Look at this. This is really cool. Steph Curry. All right. The best place to start is Fanatics Live. It's the easiest way to start collecting, even if you are a beginner. With instant grips Every pack has a professionally graded card inside. You see the floor and the ceiling value of the pack before you buy. And then once the card is revealed, it appears instantly in your collection tab. And in there, you can decide what you want to do with your card. You can keep it, ship it, or sell it instantly for credit to keep ripping. There's a variety of cards you could pull on this app. You could do NFL, NBA, MLB, and even Pokemon for you freaks out there. New users get a free instant rip pack with a graded card inside to try out. Click the link in the description to download the app and join your first stream to get yours. It's you mentioned that it was a struggle bus for offensive line. I think for both teams, one team struggled a little bit more than the other. You've also talked about in the past that you feel like there is kind of a drought here of offensive line talent in general entering into the NFL. Like, what can teams do to adjust for that? Like, at some point, they got to figure out something because everybody can't have like shit offensive line. Does that like go into like maybe being less complicated, asking, guys to move less on the offensive line or do less things? Like I would go back and I watch like the 2020 Browns and it's like no wonder that thing cracked after like 3 years because it's fucking amazing what they're asking like Wyatt Teller and Joe Patonio to do in that offense. And it's like how many guys at 300 pounds can do that? Is it something like that where they're just going to have to design offenses that acts less of these positions? Or is it going to go down to development where NFL teams might have to just start getting a little bit more creative with how they kind of source out this position, and maybe like even going to guys who are like really talented but not going to stick on a roster at like 3-tech and saying maybe you need to learn how to play offensive line, buddy. There's got to do something because the talent's just not there right now.
Yeah, I mean that's the big thing is everybody wants to rush the passer right now. So any dude who's 6'5", 310s looking to put their hand in the dirt and get after quarterbacks. I don't think it's a realistic option to say we're going to ask less of these offensive linemen because then what we're going to see is more of the college game infiltrating into the NFL level. And I think there's like a hard boundary there. When you think about a guy like Sean McVay, he's not going to sit back and do what Indiana did and just sit back and rip RPOs, just ask his offensive linemen to jump set every single snap. Like that's what Indiana's doing. If you go watch them, it's very hard to find a real true pass set from those tackles where they're actually asked to kick and get depth and really pass protect. They're all jump setting. They're getting hands off the snap as soon as possible. Now, you can mitigate that a lot in the NFL. We see a lot of 12, 13 personnel. We see a lot of chips. We see a lot of running backs chipping and going. So I think that's how we're mitigating. In the meantime, we're seeing another uptick of 12 and 13 personnel. I think what NFL teams need to do is when there's an offensive tackle presented at value, you need to take them. Instead of reaching on them, taking day 3 players in the second round like we've seen in past years. This past year is an example. I thought there were a couple that were way overdrafted just because they play tackle. I mean, you go and you look at the top 20 paid offensive tackles in the NFL right now. Only one is from a free agency addition. So they're not hitting the market. If the team has a good one, they're paying them. If the team has an average one, they're paying them. The one who is top 20 paid is Dan Moore, who wasn't particularly great with Pittsburgh and definitely isn't particularly great with Tennessee. So they hit the market, they're getting overpaid. So you really want to try to avoid that. I think it does come down to some development stuff. The big issue though is that we have dumbed down college offenses so much to where like these guys just aren't kicking anymore. These guys aren't trained how to punch, where to put their hands, how to use independent hands, what a two-handed punch is, where to latch on that outside hand versus inside hand, how to maintain leverage. Like they're just saying jump set, we're going to get the ball out in 2 seconds. Jump set, get your hands on them, do enough. So there is a very large developmental arc there, which is why like I've had the opinion that like we can love Mason Graham. I think Mason Graham had a great year, developed week in and week out, got better every week. He could develop into an all-pro defensive tackle. But I continue to make the point that like from a process perspective, not results, from a process perspective, that 5th overall pick should have led them to Armand Membu, who went 7th overall. You had a natural tackle at value on the board in a league that lacks tackles. Like that's where I start to think like you should have just taken the position that there isn't enough of in the NFL.
It's kind of like quarterback rules where it's like
it does come down to development, but there's really no easy answer.
Yeah, it's kind of like quarterback rules where it's like it's the certain positions. Like I think left tackle is becoming that rare now, where it's like it's not as impactful as quarterback, but it's like the chance to get one who's actually worth that top pick.
Mm-hmm.
It's not in every draft class. Like there's usually a
Yeah.
you could get an add value defensive tackle in the first round every year. May not be like a the prospect of caliber of Mason Graham, but you know you
Yeah.
get somebody at value there. Wide receiver certainly it almost happens every year.
Right.
But yeah, it seems like left tackle and then especially quarterback, where it's like, hey man, you got the opportunity to take one, you got to take one. But unfortunately,
Right.
not the situation the Browns are in right now. But going back to this tackle thing because I do find it fascinating, like because one of the things you pointed out is like, hey, colleges are doing less things these days to develop players because the goal has kind of turned into like they're trying to win games as much as possible,
Mm-hmm.
even more so than they were back 10, 20 years ago with the playoff format and how money's involved. And now there's like,
Mm-hmm.
artificial, not salary caps, but people are re-signing to go back to college and extending deals and all of this stuff. Like I think the gap between like college isn't going to go back to being a largely developmental like arena for the NFL. And I think that's something that the NFL has to figure out with
Mm-hmm.
how they let teams operate. Because like it used to be you could just rely on the college to develop these guys, but as much as people say the NFL is not a developmental league, the SEC ain't a developmental league either. The Big Ten,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a developmental league. They're trying to win games. Why do you think they let Josh Heupel run that offense out there in Tennessee? Right? It's not because it develops players. It's because it wins them more games than they're used to winning in Tennessee. Right? Like that's something that I don't know what the NFL solution is for, but it's becoming more and more obvious that like 10 years from now, it's going to be like a problem, a real problem
Mm-hmm.
for the league.
I'd say it already is a problem. I mean, outside of the
Yeah.
Buccaneers and the Eagles, like what team has two good tackles? Like
Yeah.
two, bare minimum two. The Lions, Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell, but like it's hard to find a third of the league that has two starting caliber offensive tackles they're trotting out there every. It's a big issue. And again, I'm glad you brought up the NIL thing because like you look at a team like Oregon, they're transferring in new tackles every year. It used to be even when the transfer portal opened in what was that, the 2020 season, 2019 era, it was
Mm-hmm.
still like not a lot of money was involved. But like even when that was the case, teams would be like, we got to get this young guy ready to play. Now it's like, oh, we don't have a left tackle, especially a school like Oregon who's got all that Nike money to throw around. They're like, if we don't got a left tackle, we'll just go buy the best one on the market. Like that's the mindset now. There's no development. It's just like, well, if this guy's not ready, we're just gonna go buy somebody. So it's a huge shift, and these guys are coming to the NFL in that same vein.
Yeah, yeah. The landscape is changing in football. I think the NFL's got to start reacting at some point because if they don't react, they're going to have a disaster on their hands. Because, like, I think what they've relied on, it's just not happening anymore. It's
Right.
at certain position groups, especially. But let's talk about wide receiver. It's another big need for the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are a unique need at wide receiver because, like, they don't need they need specific types of wide receivers, right? Like the room has lacked diversity for a while. No Chad O'Shea in there, so there's some hope there that they're going to add some different types of wide receiver there. I think that's kind of been the big complaint is that the Browns go after like the same kind of 5'11" route runner type, or they'll squeeze in like a 170-pound burner every once in a while
Mm-hmm.
into that mix. What do you see from the East West Shrine game? People who could maybe add a different dimension if they're developed properly to what the Browns offer, might be worth kind of a swing at specific spots here for Cleveland.
Yeah, so I'll bring Young back up, the Georgia receiver again. I get listed at 6'3", 215, and he's
He's big.
again, part of this thing and part of scouting is like you got a body type a little bit. And the dude looks the part, and he's fast and he moves pretty well for that size. So I think a team that desperately needs a ball winner. Again, you kind of thought Cedric Tillman might be that guy. plays a little softer contact to be that guy. Colby
Mm.
Young, could that be the ball winner to come look for down here at Shrine? Could be. Um, Again, looking for maybe that slot gadget. If the Malachi Corley thing doesn't work out long term here, go back to Caden Wheatgen. Go back to Xavion Thomas. Those two guys that I mentioned. Wheatgen, again, I was talking to a scout who's like, maybe this guy's Danny Woodhead again, where Danny just had some set backfield. The way to isolate on linebackers and safeties is to keep a guy off the line of scrimmage.
Mm.
And then you can run choice and do stuff out of the backfield like that, motion them out of the backfield and find ways to do some stuff like that. So those three have really, really stuck out to me. In terms of some other guys, there's another LSU receiver who just got here today, Chris Hilton, who's moving really well off the line of scrimmage, really explosive playmaker, a 4.3 speed kind of guy. Again, not an overly big, dumb, like physically imposing receiver, though. If you're looking for a big, physically imposing receiver here outside of Young, I would love to find it as well. That you could point me in the direction because I haven't quite seen that yet as well.
Yeah, it. I don't know. I feel like recently there's not a lot of big receivers that play big anymore. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just me getting old. Like, and I'm just like, it's one of those things where like I'm just imagining it's not there. But it feels like you get a lot of wide receivers who are like huge guys. Like nobody's ever just sat them in the room and told them you're big as shit. Like please play like you're big as shit, you know? Instead, like they're getting like all these fucking stutter steps and all this stuff in one-on-ones. It's like, no, just run through his chest and catch that shit over him. Like, just be bigger than him. Like, see what happens, you know? I don't know. Maybe I'm tripping on that, but it just feels like less and less guys come in with that kind of mindset. It's like everybody's kind of trying to play like prime Odell Beckham.
Yeah, it seems like the pendulum always swings with these wide receivers too, because like 2021, 2022, 2020, like 2020 to 2022, really, it felt like 2023 a little bit. We were really prioritizing route running separation. You got to be able to get open. I don't care how big you are. You got to get open. You got to be able to separate. If you've got enough green grass in front of you, catch the football, make a play. We saw Justin Jefferson, Jerry Jeudy, Garrett Wilson, all these like 6-footish receivers getting drafted in the first round, right? And then obviously Jeudy is a bad example to include those other two, but we started to compromise a little bit on the play strength side. Well, can you play through contact? When there's a dude working through your hands, can you still maintain through the catch? Garrett Wilson, yes. Justin Jefferson, yes. Jerry Jeudy?
I think that's why Jerry's a great example, right? Because he has, like Jerry Jeudy. I made this point. I think somebody clipped it and put it in a TikTok, like I was a hater about it or something like that. But my point is, like he catches nothing through contact, like that. Mm-hmm. You touch Jerry Jeudy at some point in that catch, it might pop out, dog. Like it's 50-50 at that point.
Yeah, it's a huge issue with Jeudy. Huge issue with Jeudy. So I think we're starting to swing back a little bit. Like, yes, route running and separation are important, but go look at like Devontae Adams separates like somewhat naturally, but he's like a 4.55 athlete. CeeDee Lamb, a 4.55 athlete. These guys are subtle in their movements. These guys know how to use subtle nudges at the top of their routes, and they're ball winners at the catch point, and they're strong through contact. So like I think we're starting to get back a little bit. Like you can't compromise the ability to play through strength just because this guy's always freaking open. And so that's why I watch a guy like Carnell Tate and I say like that guy moves really, again, another 4.55 athlete, probably in the Devontae Adams mold, CeeDee Lamb kind of mold, but he's a really fluid mover. He knows how to get open subtly. And then if you watched any Ohio State football this year, you see him elevate at the catch point consistently and bring the ball down. Just like, I think he was like 12 of 16 in contested catch situations this year. Just an outrageous number.
And nothing's cooler in football than the wide receiver who can do a gimme those, right? Like that is the windmill dunk of football, the between the legs dunk. It's like, oh, you could do a gimme those in the corner of the end zone. Nothing cooler, nothing more aesthetic in this game than that. Let's talk about some of the guys on the defensive side of the ball, because I think if you do look at, I don't know if it's a need for the Browns, but it's certainly somewhere where they're going to be poking around is in that secondary, right? Safeties, corners. We talked about it before where like, I think me and you are both aligned on this. We are hoping that the Browns love D'Angelo Ponds as much as we do because he would make a lot of sense there. I mean, like, especially since you got the trade for Tyson Campbell and Denzel has been trending the way that he has, like as far as his physicality, he's certainly taking it down a notch. It's like you probably need another guy, a body out there who's willing to kind of get in those trenches in the way that Denzel used to. And it's like, man, Pons is just an insane guy. He plays exactly like a dude who has somehow found a way to be the best defense, well, one of the best defensive players on the national championship team at 5'9" place. like you imagine like what kind of player you have to be successful at that level of football at 5'9". It's like, oh, you're gonna imagine Pons.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're thinking about for the Browns, like NFL teams are running nickel at a 75% clip. If their Browns are keeping on Jim Schwartz as their defensive coordinator, if they are, he's going to run nickel at a 75% clip. And that means like teams are going to run out 12 personnel. Teams are going to run out 2 tight ends. And if you're keeping your nickel on the field, that nickel's got to be able to fit the run. That nickel's got to be able to tackle. Hans throws himself in there, man, not even recklessly, but like controlled, and he will tackle. He had like a 3% missed tackle rate at 5'8". So like the guy is a very good tackler. He will sling in there and do what he needs to do. And then again, if this guy was 2 inches taller, he'd be the first corner off the board. Like there's no question in my mind if he's 2 inches taller, he's the first corner off the board. But yeah, especially a team that needs a nickel makes a lot of sense. I would say even as early as like the 3rd round, even if they find a way to trade back from 38 closer to 50, something like that, I wouldn't hesitate, especially in this draft class where these draft classes, again, because of NIL, are getting narrower and narrower and narrower. The amount of players declaring for the draft every year is getting smaller. So like guys who you might traditionally say like this is a 4th round pick, they're going 2nd round now because 64 players have to go in the first 2 rounds. Doesn't matter what grade you have on them. 64 players got to go in the 1st round. So I think Pons is a 2nd round player all day. So I would take that guy in the 2nd round. Yeah.
Would you be willing to take the heat if you were in Andrew Berry's position of going Josh Downs and Pons in some combination with your first 4 picks? Like, would that result be worth the heat in that kitchen that you're gonna take? Because that is the Green Goblin mask sitting on my desk every day, which is like, we could just beat people the fuck up. Like we could just do that. Like,
right. So the big issue that I would have with like a Caleb Downs thing is that like for Jim Schwartz to be able to let his corners get up and play the way he lets them do, you need to have a safety who can play over the top. And I would love if somebody would show me a highlight that's not in the red zone where the field is condensed of Caleb Downs turning and running over the top and making a really rangy play. He's an excellent. That's not me saying that he's not an excellent football player. Got a 1st round grade on the guy. He is a firm tackler. He will step into the box and hit somebody. He is really good in low hole zone coverage. The one thing that Caleb Downs does not have that box depth on his scouting report is that ability to turn and run over the top and cover some ground. And you know, that's what they wanted out of Juan Thornhill. Didn't work out. I think they're still kind of hunting for that true free safety. Sports had to adjust a little bit this year. He had Ronnie Hickman playing free safety, who also lacks that turn and run over the top. So they had to adjust with a little more split safety this year. Do I think Sports wants to get back to that true single high? Yes. But he needs somebody who can play true single high to do it. So that would be my biggest issue there. Yeah, I think those are 2 really good football players. I would have a hard time unless the Delpit era is coming to an end or nearing an end. Then I would say, yeah, take Caleb Downs because Delpit's playing close to the line of scrimmage. Delpit's playing in the nickel a little bit. Delpit's slinging into run fits. Then if that's the case, yeah. Or if you said like Grant, can you? Because we've seen some Grant highlights of the Commanders game in 2022 where Grant had those 2 interceptions, both rotating over the top and covering some ground and picking off Carson Wentz in that game. So unless that's the case that they want to kind of go with here, I think that's asking a lot of Grant year in and year out to say like, oh, no, this year you're going to do this, next year you're going to do this. Like he's already been turned in a million directions, and he's a good player and he's a versatile good player who can do it. But that would be my big hang up with that.
Yeah, like the Grant reminds me of like when I have ADHD. So when I played baseball, I could not play in the outfield because I'd lose focus, right? Like I would be able to do it, but I lose focus. I had to play catcher because like that's the only position where it's like I cannot be unfocused out here because the ball is coming every play. Um, Grant, like I think he can physically do it. I think the issue sometimes has been when he's been out there is he's had some lapses where it's like, hey Grant, what the fuck, man? What's going on, Grant? Grant, were you paying attention? It's like Grant wasn't paying attention, right? And it's funny too, like when you think about Grant's like pre-draft profile and everything people were saying about him that made him fall in the second round, and then like the player he's actually become, it's two different players. Like because he was what's supposed to be a weak tackler and not somebody who could be in the box and somebody who only really tried to be a free safety, and it's like in the league, it's like he really makes more sense the closer to the line of scrimmage you're able to put him on a consistent basis. And then like you have him do some slot snaps too. Right. But yeah, but speaking of free safety, right? Did you see anybody at East West that you think might be able to have some potential there at the free safety position?
Free, not so much. But again, there's a lot of split safeties here that I can dig. Dalton Johnson out of Arizona did a little nickel safety hybrid role there in that Arizona secondary. He's the one that really pops out in my mind. But again, rangy free safeties over the top, not easy to come by. Haven't quite seen one at Shrine yet either.
Yeah, I think who would have fit the bill last year? Would it have been Emery?
Emin Ward, no, he's more of a box kind of overhangish kind of player.
He's just a freak athlete.
Right. I'm trying to think of the other safeties in last year's class were, man. It's been a long day.
Who are the last like rangy? Who are the last like true free safeties come out? Like, is this a dying breed?
It is a little bit because teams are running a lot more rotational too high stuff. And like the true cover 1, cover 3 is becoming pretty bland outside of like Dan Quinn, Jim Schwartz. But I'm trying to think. This year, I could name you at least one pretty good one, and that would be Genesis Smith. That is Arizona Dalton Johnson's teammate who's here, but Genesis Smith is not here. He'll be at Senior Bowl, but he's a really really explosive player over the top. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Malachi Starks. Malachi Starks last year to the Ravens. Pretty decent example of that, going all the way back to his freshman year. Where he picked off Bo Nix and that his first game as a college athlete.
I remember that.
He's got some range and some playmaking ability over the top. So I think that's a pretty decent example there.
That's funny because it felt like it was yesterday. You saw that play and they were like, "That's a true freshman," and you like, "Wow, he's gonna be in college forever," and he's already playing for the Ravens.
He's year 2 of the Ravens now. Yeah.
Hey, have you ever heard of the Sleeper app? Well, here's a fun secret. It's not just for fantasy leagues. It's great for fantasy leagues. I personally have used it for years with my college friends to play fantasy football and to do pick'em leagues, all sorts of fun stuff like that. But the Sleeper app also gives you news. It gives you scores. You can also try to turn your football knowledge into real money. Just download the Sleeper app and pick more or less on your favorite players with more stats than any other daily fantasy app. Just choose 2 or more of your favorite players from pregame or live. Pick more or less from the predicted stats, and you could win up to 100 times your money if your picks win. Use promo code WORSTTAKE and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Again, promo code WORSTTAKE. You'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. Links are in the description.
Let's talk about corner. Are there any corners that popped off to you at East West?
Yeah, so still in the nickel mold here. I love Jaden Kennedy, the Oregon nickel. He's a player that I've loved since he was at Tulane. Back in the day when he was at Tulane, I was doing some consulting for NFL Agent. And I recommended him to this agent. I'm not quite sure what happened there in the follow-up process, but then he transferred from Tulane to Ole Miss. Ole Miss was playing him outside the freaking numbers, man. They were playing him along the boundary. Didn't quite go as planned there, but now he transferred to Oregon then for his last year of eligibility and got thrown back in the nickel, and it was a great season at Oregon for him. And he's had a great week as well. Another guy that's not afraid to come in and hit, really sticky in press man, really sticky in off man. The turn and run ability has some question marks from NFL teams. He says he can do it. I talked to him the first day I was here. He said he can do it. So, but he's an excellent nickel prospect. In terms of like true corners, NC State's Devin Marshall has been probably the best player here, in my opinion. Just 5'10", 195. So prototypical corner size as well. Not one of these like 5'9", 170-pound twigs that the NFL is tending to, or college football is tending to churn out these days as well. But really explosive athlete, really good trigger, change of directions, really smooth. He's been really sticky in coverage as well, and he plays through the hands really high. So he's been a great disruptor at the cornerback position this year, or this week as well. Georgia Tech's Amari Harvey, another one. I think he got hurt today though, so I don't know if he's coming back out tomorrow. But Amari Harvey from Georgia Tech's another one I'll throw out there too.
You mentioned Georgia Tech, and it reminded me, it's ironic that both the Georgia teams are this situation. How do you evaluate wide receivers in Georgia and Georgia Tech this year? Because we've seen that quarterback play, right? Like, and look, Gunnar and Haynes King were good enough to win some games in college, and I'm certainly not trying to disrespect them in any way, but I think we can agree that that was quarterback play that made it hard to evaluate what was really going on with some of these pass catchers. So like when you do look at a Georgia wide receiver, or there's a Georgia Tech wide receiver that's like super twitchy, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, how do you evaluate like, hey man, this is what he can do versus this is what they had to do with him because Haynes King is throwing him the ball,
Right. That's kind of the question with like Louisville's Chris Bell as well, right? Mm-hmm. Who is extremely explosive and I think pretty polished for a 6'1", 220 guy, but he's playing with Miller Moss, who is down here this week, the quarterback Miller Moss, who has, to put it lightly, a pop gun arm, who just like can't throw the football to every level of the field. So he's running a lot of shallow cross, a lot of slant, stuff like that. So in those cases, especially like Colby Young out of Georgia, right? That I mentioned earlier, like you got to pay attention to the little stuff around catching the football first. So like, does he stem with intention? Is he good off the line of scrimmage? Does he sell with head fakes? At the top, can he sell a little offensive pass interference, like in a refined, subtle way without extending into the defensive back? How clean does he look coming out of those breaks? Is he stiff? Is he fluid? So you kind of try to evaluate all this as well there. And then you try to, like, once all that's written, you try to pay attention as much as you can at the catch point when those targets do come. Is he playing through contact? Is he explosive enough to hoop over some? It's like, for the most part, even if they're not getting the football, especially like working vertically, you can tell, is he beating his guy off the line of scrimmage? Is he pulling away from him down the field? And when he does beat off the line of scrimmage, is he winning with physicality to like restack and win back leverage? Those sorts of things you can still see even if they're not getting.
Yeah. All right. We could briefly go over quarterback. I don't think there's really much to talk about here with this class outside of Mendoza. There's a Ty Simpson conversation to be had. But like, even like if we get past Ty Simpson, it's like, hey man, like what are we talking about? Like Drew Aller coming off injury, Cade Klubnik coming off the worst year of his career. Then you're down to like what, the Luke Alzheimer's and just basically like names, there's the North Dakota State kid who's apparently a good athlete, like Miller Moss, right, who was here today. Jalen, was it from Kansas? Pretty good athlete, pretty good arm today.
Oh, Jalen Daniels, yeah.
Jaden Daniels, yeah. So it's like you're kind of down to that. I feel like, and I hope this doesn't come off as derogatory, but it's like, I feel like I watched a lot of guys who probably would be playing spring football, like this weekend. Like it feels like it's more in that direction, especially like in Miller Moss's case, where I'm like, I don't know if he has the arm to even like stick through a training camp, right? Like it's very evident there. Gronowski was willing to toss that thing over the middle. I think we all appreciated that today. He was willing to be a little gutsy there with the football. But what's been your evaluation of the quarterback position, and kind of like, if you're a team like Cleveland, you're just kind of in a rough spot here at quarterback. Is this a draft where it's like, hey, if you can't get the top guy, you just got to take the L?
I mean, that's definitely the case. But there are GMs, and it kind of feels like Andrew Berry's maybe perhaps one of those, based on how past drafts have kind of gone every other-ish year now. If you listen to the Dolphins intro presser with their new GM, he's very adamant about the Packers way, that we're going to draft a quarterback every year. We're going to draft a quarterback bare minimum every other year, which was the Patriots thing too, with like Garoppolo and Brissett and all of those guys when Belichick was there. So like, And Barry, did it with DTR and then took 2 this year. And that's probably partially because DTR didn't pan out and he's off the roster after 2 seasons. But is Andrew Barry one of those guys that's like, we're just going to take a quarterback every year? It could be, because we've seen Andrew Barry trade some like bottom tier backup quarterbacks for 5th round picks. Like, if we're being completely honest, he's flipped bottom tier backup quarterbacks for 5th round picks. So can he invest a 6th round and turn it into a 5th round? Like, that's kind of the conversation there.
He views them as like recoupable assets. You know what I mean? Like, I think that was the kind of thought process with Shador. It's like, hey, well, you might be able to get your money back here, right? Or make a little bit more money. Like, he gambles with these quarterbacks because I think he does like see like you can trade them to a team and get your money back. So I think he is willing to like pull the trigger on quarterbacks that maybe other teams might be, a little scared to. And he's got like fucking 5 5th-round picks this year or something ridiculous like that. And that's probably going to be where a lot of these quarterbacks sit in this class, is around that 5th round marker.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the case. I think we're in the conversation with this class where we're back to talking about like Cade Klubnik as QB3. Like, that's maybe even like Ty Simpson is going to be the second quarterback off the board. Do I think that Ty Simpson is the second best quarterback in this class? I don't have a good answer to that, because you look at the frame on Ty Simpson and it's really narrow. You see his one body of work as a starter, and you see that he got hurt 3 times in one. Even if he played through it, he got hurt 3 times in his one. Like, so can his frame sustain NFL contact? I'm not so sure. And that's not even to get into like the football side of thing, where like his accuracy was not good this year. Like, he is not an accurate quarterback. Could that be because he was playing hurt? Could be, but also like you can't take that out of the evaluation, because in his 1 year as a starting quarterback at the college level, he was always playing hurt. So like, that's the assumption we have to go forward to, is like, this guy's going to be working through something probably for the rest of his life playing football. It's not a great quarterback class. I had high hopes. I'm shocked. I think some Oregon teammates are shocked that Dante Moore went back as well, because I think he would have been the second guy off the board. Still doesn't solve the Browns' problem to 6 with Dante Moore if he would have come out, but like, it is a second quarterback in this class. It's rough waters. I think the best move for the Browns would be to see if can we trade back from 6, and can we recoup a 1 next year. The issue is you got to find somebody who wants to come up for that pick. And is that something you're going to find in this year? So that's kind of where we're sitting now with this.
Who wants to come off that pick and is willing to come off of 2027 when it's like a couple of teams have already loaded up for 2027. So I think people are catching wind. It's like, oh, okay, they feel like that's going to be a good year. We'll see. People thought 2026 was going to be a good year, right? So,
next year's class is always better.
Yeah, it's always next year's class until next year's class, and then next year's class. And then like every once in a while you get a 2018, or what was it? The Drake May class was 2024. Was that 24 or 25? 23.
That was 24.
Yeah, 24 class, which is like, I mean, that's an insane class. All 3 of those guys have almost made a conference championship game. Well, 2 of them have, right? Caleb Williams, ironic, the guy who went number 1, and I think it made sense why somebody would take him number 1 overall. Like, he's the one that hasn't gotten there, and it's not like his career's been bad like so far. That just goes to show you how good that class was. But it's not looking like that kind of a year for Cleveland. So they're probably going to have to get creative for the quarterback solutions. We'll probably have to bring you back on, talk about free agency at that point. Or fun little retreads, right? Let's try to do this. Oh, I feel like the Browns are going to have to do the same thing they did last year, but hopefully they do it in a much better way, where they had Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett. And I'm like, please pick better names for these roles, if you're going to run that plan back, other than Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett. But it's going to be interesting to see. We still got more to cover at East West Shrine. Definitely fun to get in touch with Corey. Corey, where can people find your work and get more connected with what you put out, man?
Yeah, so daptondraft.football is my Substack. It's my website. It's my brainchild. I'm putting out 4 premium contents a week. I'm trying to do 2 video film breakdowns a week, 2 other like either positional rankings or some sort of scouting report or some sort of written articles a week as well. So 4 premium things.
Free subs get you an access to my Discord channel as well. Paid subs, you get access to all those 4 articles that I just mentioned, plus insider information on that Discord channel, and access to all of my quarterback charts as well. I spend a lot of time charting these quarterbacks for ball placement and accuracy, and so I have my own metric as well to kind of give it a number at the end of the day. Like this is the number of this how accurate this quarterback is, and it's helped me compare quarterback classes present to quarterback classes past, and kind of put it in a historical perspective there too, of what is average and what's above average and stuff like that. For something like accuracy, when guys are like, I watched that guy play football and he's not very accurate. Well, you watch one game. So what does it look like when you put the whole body of work there? But so that's kind of where you can find my main stuff, is daft-on-draft.football.
Definitely, man. Appreciate having you on. Hold on, it's got you paused at a crazy frame. Okay, that's much better. Definitely, man. Awesome. Make sure you guys go check it out. I want to thank everybody for watching. You guys have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.